So the legend of the Skinwalker is 100% to do with the clash between the indigenous people that actually lived here for thousands of years, and then when the colonizers showed up. And that was from different eras. There was Spaniards that came and enslaved a lot of Native Americans and forced them to work in mines to mine out of gold. And then there was battles and wars, and a lot of the Spaniards were killed, and their bodies and all their armor and clothes and weapons and everything were just thrown in the mines, and then the indigenous people would seal the entrance shut and sometimes even booby trap it with kill traps and things to hide all that stuff. And they didn't care about the gold, they didn't care about the metal or any of that the Spanish were digging out. And so they just chucked all of that in these holes, closed them up, and then went back into their daily life until the Mormon pioneers showed up. And then they had to deal with it in a whole new way. See, there's different game trails that just cut up through here in different spots that are all worth following to see what could be up there. But I want to go to the end of the property and work my way back today. But what happened was, when colonizer groups would show up at different times, they would begin to human traffic and slave trade the indigenous people. And the Native Americans here specifically, it would have been the Ute tribe. So the Utes and the Northern Paiutes, the Shoshone, a lot of the different clans that were up here, they were suddenly pressured for their resources and stuff. And they turned to different spiritual methods and rituals, like down in Nevada and across Arizona, and then eventually a huge movement that spread into the Lakota. They started doing the ghost dance, which was like this whole time travel ritual that was in conjunction with the Big Dipper, how it rotates around the North Star and the four directions, north, south, east, and west, and aligning your soul for spiritual protection. Got to keep an eye out for rattlesnakes. So the Paiute and the Northern Paiute and the Goshen tribes, a lot of them started doing the ghost dance ritual. So you see all these medicine wheels and ritual stone circles. The Navajo, the Dene, a lot of them were abducted. They were kidnapped and they were slave traded, and they were brought up here and sold into the colonizer families as actual slaves. And they were even sold among each other in different clans and different tribes, because the resources and everything suddenly got under extreme pressure when these different people started moving into the valleys and up into the basin. So as all of that was unfolding, the Native American people, the Navajo, the Dene people, started doing rituals also to curse and to protect the land where certain things happened. So like at Skinwalker Ranch, one of the main stories and why the whole legend of the Skinwalker exists there is because there was a Native American woman from the Navajo tribe whose name was Rose, or Rosie. And she was kidnapped from her home down in New Mexico on the borders of Arizona there, where kind of by Lake Powell. And she was abducted. Her entire family was murdered. And she was brought back up here and actually kind of sold into an arranged marriage. And that all happened right where Skinwalker Ranch is. And when that occurred, and when Rose was taken from her family and they were all murdered, the Navajo enacted the Skinwalker curse upon that land because of the slave trading, because of the human trafficking, and that Rose specifically was taken up there. She was married to a white man, and they lived there as a family, like as one of the first families there actually at Skinwalker Ranch. And then I think something happened. Her first husband died. She remarried a man that she actually liked, and then they lived their whole life and moved up the valley, and is somewhere has died or buried in between Skinwalker Ranch and Blind Frog Ranch. Between that path of where all that happened is literally the place where the original legend of the Skinwalker begins. And that was the whole story. It was based around her. In fact, if we went and talked to Randy at his little art museum earlier at the beginning of this video series, And his wife is a curator at the local museum. And I'm pretty sure at the museum they even have whole displays and information about Rose and Rosie that you can go in and look at that and learn about her. But I think it's really fascinating that when those pressures occurred and when the Native American indigenous people started to get captured, human trafficked, slave traded, and murdered and exterminated, they turned to their spiritual rituals. They turned to projecting guardian spirits upon the land, and they turned to their spiritual ceremonies of time travel, going into the future to try and send a message to protect a place or to guard a place or to keep it from getting destroyed. And then fast forward into our time, and you have Thunderstrike Ranch, have a family living up here and people living up here, and they encounter this phenomena like it's real. And they encounter these apparitions like ghosts of these shaman figures and these Skinwalker type apparitions and these different things. And it's almost like there's something to that magic that actually stuck. Something about what the indigenous people were doing actually happened and is real, or somehow imprinted their energy upon the land. And our perception of space-time is a misunderstanding, so that when we come to these places, the past and the future become very thin. And when you learn how to become self-aware, you suddenly see what all of that is about and you experience it. But I think it's really fascinating how all of that fits together and overlaps. So basically the whole point is, where there's smoke, there's fire. As we're up here hiking around, even though like colonizers, Spanish conquistadors coming up and enslaving them is not directly connected to UFOs, it is exactly why there's potent energy here, why there's deep ancient mystery and history that's all overlapped that makes this place like energetically potent. And I think there's spots like this all over the world, but when they're all directly in a line, and then you've got government involvement, like right down at Skinwalker Ranch, you've got deep military, CIA, government involvement. You know, Travis Taylor came out of programs that the DIA and DEA or wherever he came out of, and now you've got Jay Stratton coming out of the Pentagon working there, and then you've got Eric Davis, and these guys are all talking about how they've seen entities coming out of portals, and they've seen UFOs, and they've seen all of this, how it's interrelated. So it's one thing to see it on the TV show and to watch them all talk about it. It's another thing to come up and find a property like this that you can come and stay in the Airbnb yourself and rent the cabin, and you can go around and experience it without any confusion, without wondering if you're being tricked or hoaxed, without being concerned if it's a government setup or psyop. You can come up here by yourself like I am right now. Nobody has a clue where I'm at. And if I find something, or if I see a UFO, or if I experience some sort of paranormal encounter with an indigenous spirit, even if that's just within my own mind or my own dreams or experience, then I know for myself, I don't have to wait for the government to tell me what's going on. I get the personal validation for myself, and I get the opportunity to share that all with you too. I think that's really cool. So if we find Spanish artifacts, that is still a huge clue as to where the energy around all this trauma, generational trauma and magic and spiritual energy is focused, and it's all going to apply. So it's really fascinating to see what we can find. And there's definitely drive-ups going all over through here that we got to start exploring now.